man-to-man session, supporting kings to embrace their masculinity and amplify their influence. Welcome to M2M Session Podcast. Stay with me, let us do this.
Alright guys, welcome back from the short break. Okay, thank you so much. Wow, thank you so much for your time, Mr. Edison. Emeka, like he said, we need to sit up. There's actually room for more. As young men, we shouldn't just be sex freaks and we shouldn't be led by everything that we see on skirts. There is room for more. You see, what you're doing in this episode is to provide that learning opportunity for every young man out there. Because it looks like the ladies are more prepared for marriage than we. I would tell you for free, it takes the leadership of a man to build a home, not just a house. We've been taught, we've been told, we've been informed by society that it is the responsibility of a woman to build a home. No. You are the one. You have a part to play also in building your home. You shouldn't just give money. You see, that's what some men think, that they will give the money, the wife will set up everything and all. No. As men, we are not just the head of the home. We are the foundation of the home. Yes, we are the foundation of the home. So enough of that mentality that when something goes wrong with a child, you call your wife and say, have you seen your son? Have you seen your daughter? No, that's passing the blame. Enough of that. Take responsibility. Raise your children. Influence and impact your wife. You have a part to play in this. Okay, so we are going to be letting you go now, Mr. Edison Emeka. Thank you very much for your time. So we have our second speaker with us. Trust me, this is a very, very a man of excellence. His reputation precedes him. Dr. Esien Ukorebi Jr. Thank you very much for being with us today, sir. So, my first question to you is, how did you meet your wife and how did you know that she was the one?
Hello, my name is Dr. Esien Ukorebi, and I'll be speaking on how I met my wife in this relationship series. And the first question is, how did you meet your wife and how did you know she was the one? Wow, interesting question. Well, I met my wife in a Christian association called FECA whilst I was in university at that time, and that was in Calabar in Nigeria, and it was an exciting thing because when I first met her, I had no clue that she was going to be my wife. So basically, we used to work together in a department. She was in welfare department and I was also in that department. And shortly after, I became the leader of welfare department, and she was one of my most consistent members whilst working in that department. And we continued to work together, fellowship together, and then we built, friendship. I continued in that fellowship, became the president after a couple of years, still friends to my wife, who also became the assistant general secretary. And it was at this point that I, got to know her even more, and we got to develop more stronger friendship. And of course, after we finished serving in that fellowship, a couple of years down the line, our friendship transformed into marriage. I mean, the second part of the question, how did I know she was the one? Now, of course, every man expects, some qualities in their spouse or their wife. They expect them to be committed, to be devoted and to be submissive. And this is important. And these are some of the qualities that I saw in my wife whilst I was working with her in FECA. And, there are some of the things that attracted me to her. More importantly, is the fact that I realized that she was quite loving. Even the Bible says, above all, love each other deeply, because love covers, a multitude of sin. She was very loving. She could forgive. She could, the love was palpable. And I saw that she was selfless. She could go out of her way to do things for not just herself, for people, and this was a quality that I was really attracted to. I knew she was the one because, of course, I found these qualities and even more. She is very patient, and no matter how rough times we had whilst we were dating or courting, I realized that she was always patient through it all, and I've seen that translate into marriage as well. There's always rough times in marriages. Couples will always have rough times, and patience is an important quality. It is as important as commitment, is as important as humility and all the other virtues that we look for in a woman. And I saw this patience in her whilst we walked through the welfare department, whilst we served in the fellowship. I saw she was patient, and I was like, well, this is someone that I need to make my wife. I could go on and on. I mean, she is very respectful, and she showed great amount of respect for who I am as a person, for my desires, for my ambition. She had a lot of respect, not just because I was her leader or her president, but even after we finished serving, she had so much respect, and it's not very common that you see these things, And finally, I would say she's such a confident and hardworking person, and I'm hardworking myself, and they say like begets like, or attracts like, and I was attracted to her, and I knew she was the one, of course, because of these qualities. She knows what she wants, and she would not stop at anything, until she gets that thing. So yeah, when you see these qualities all together put in one person, and you've developed friendship with that person, it's easy to know that they're the one. And of course, most importantly for me, when you listen to the voice of God and the direction from God, I had peace of mind in my heart, all through our friendship, all through our courtship. I had peace of mind at every stage. And even when I walked down the aisle, eventually I was doing it with 100%, conviction that she was the one. Thank you very much.
by this and this just in a way conveys a subtle message for every young man out there listening. Trust me, your wife, your future wife is around. She's around. Look around your friends. Don't look too far. Don't look too far. There's a 90% possibility that your wife is around. The reason why you not know is because maybe you will not open your eyes to see. Just get ready and you'd see. All right. Okay, second question, sir. Second question. Can you share with us your experiences with handling in-laws?
Right, so the next question is, can I share my experience with handling in-laws? Well, I would say when you get married, or when I got married, one of the things that I had to understand really early on was that the marriage was not just about myself and my wife. It was also about the coming together, the joining of two families. So my family essentially is sort of intertwining with her family. So her parents became my parents by extension. Her siblings became my siblings, and vice versa. I think this is a very important step that people or married couples should embrace early on. Because if you can see your spouse's parents as your parents, then you would accord them the same sort of love, the same respect, and you will get to treat them like your own parents. So that's one thing that I decided to do right from time. So if I'm calling up my parents to check up on them regularly, I also have to understand that I owe my parents in-law that duty to also call up on them, check up on them, be interested in their welfare as well. So my wife has got her father and mother still around, so both of them are still around, and that means I've got a father-in-law and a mother-in-law. Even down to the basic things. If you're, as a husband, sending monies regularly to your parents, you should also send monies regularly to your spouse's parents as well. Essentially what I'm trying to say is that you've got 4 parents now. If you've got your both parents alive, your spouse's parents, add to them, and you've got 4 parents, and you should treat them all equally, and love them all equally, respect them all equally as well. That's the first and the foundation of dealing with your in-laws. And then secondly, I would like to say that it is important to understand that you have now moved on to forming your own family, which constitutes yourself, your wife, and your children if you've got some. And your family comes first, whatever happens. You should also understand boundaries, and boundaries are very important when dealing with in-laws. You should agree as a partnership, agree as husband and wife, the kind of things that should leave your marriage, the kind of things that should leave your house, the kind of things that should be discussed with your in-laws or your parents, and the things that should not be discussed with them. When you find yourself as a couple in a situation where your parents are hearing or getting to find out so much about the intricacies and the details that are going on in your home, then there might just be a problem. If your parents are coming up in almost every discussion, I need to speak to my parents, what will they say? Or my parents this, my parents that. It means there might just be a problem there. So it's important to understand that boundaries should exist when dealing with in-laws. They should know their role in your family. I think this way, you would learn to handle, your in-laws even more effectively. The goal is to have a perfect or a near perfect marriage, and as much as possible, not allow external influence, either from, in-laws or from friends or from anyone, essentially. So boundaries are very important. And don't get me wrong, there are times where in-laws can become a problem. There are times where in-laws can, encroach into your own personal space and family. And it's important to understand this as a couple and to be able to talk about it. And, most people talk about problems with, parents-in-law or, mother-in-laws, but you can also have misunderstanding with, sister-in-laws and brother-in-laws. They're all, in the whole mix of marriage. And it's important that when these issues, between in-laws start to come up, it can be talked about. So as a couple, learn to talk about, these issues. I and my wife would always talk about, issues that she perceives that might cause a problem, if any of my family members were to be encroaching or doing something that she perceives isn't for the best interest of the family. And if I also perceive that, well, this decision or this action from her side is not in the best interest, we always talk about it. So it's important to engage in that discussion, especially when you've set your boundaries. You need to talk to yourself about it, because if left unspoken about, sometimes problems with in-laws can spiral and become even more difficult to handle. And don't forget, before you met this spouse of yours, they had their parents, they had their siblings almost for life, and they've built some sort of loyalty, some sort of connection. So it's a sensitive issue to address when you're having to confront your spouse about a certain behavior from their parents or from their siblings. But ultimately, it is important to bring it to the table when you first sense that there is a problem. And don't get me wrong, sometimes you just don't blend straight away with your in-laws, either your parents in-law or your sibling in-laws. There's also a place of giving it time. As time goes on, as the marriage continues to grow, as you continue to relate with these in-laws, you would develop some sort of relationship with them. And of course, this is why it's important to always keep in touch. I try as much as possible to keep in touch with my wife's siblings as much as I can. And of course, support them as much as I can. The same thing with her parents. So I think if you, like I said in the beginning, if you see them as your own siblings, if you see them as your parents, then they become, even easier to deal with. I mean, to summarize, what I've said about in-laws, I can't, overemphasize on how important it is to treat your in-laws with love as much as possible, and as much as they cooperate and allow you to do so. But of course, just to summarize, I would stress the fact that you must put your marriage first, because of course that's the reason why you've got in-laws in the first place, is because you're married. So your marriage must come first. You must ensure that you've got a very healthy relationship, with yourself and your spouse, and not let in-laws or anyone come in between that. I did speak about enforcing healthy boundaries, and ensuring that both yourself and your spouse understands these boundaries and stick to them. It's important, of course, not to get into confrontations with in-laws, even when you've tried everything and they're still sort of difficult. I have never had a confrontation with my parents in-law or my siblings in-law. I celebrate them when they're celebrating. I'm happy with them when they're happy, and never been in a confrontation. And the same thing for my wife as well. Always keep your cool, even when there is an argument or there is heat in the atmosphere. It's important. Always try as much as possible to find a way to sort these things out. Be as flexible as possible. Make adjustments to accommodate them as much as you can. Of course, I did say put your marriage first, even in all of that. I mean, it's important to understand that at the end of the day, you need your peace of mind. You need a healthy family to function well. So the message is treat your in-laws as you would treat your parents and your siblings, essentially. And, as much as it lies with you, try to live at peace with your in-laws. This is what I have done to handle my in-laws. Thank you very much.
Amazing. Wow. Like you said, the marriage is not just about yourself and your wife, but the interjoining of the two families. All right, sir. Next question. The role of a father is quite different from the role of a husband. Some men are prepared for one, while others aren't even prepared for any. what do young men need to do to prepare themselves to become better and successful husbands and fathers?
Right, I think I really like this next question. What do young men need to become successful husbands and fathers? I got married before I was 30, and at that point I think I was pretty sure that I was ready to become at least a husband, first of all, and maybe also a father. And I know that most people listening today, if you're unmarried, you definitely want to make, the best husband ever, and of course the best father. And it's important that young men, prepare themselves for this, and, also, work towards achieving this. It starts with your relationship. It starts with, your day-to-day relationship with the opposite sex. This is where you begin to sort of build the qualities and the characteristics that would, translate, when you get married, essentially. This is where you begin to develop those characteristics that help you sustain your relationship. Well, I'll start off talking about, preparing to be a successful husband first, because of course I was first a husband before being a father. I think, as a husband, it's important, first of all, to set your priorities right. What do you want to achieve from the relationship? What do you want to achieve from that marriage? Every wife wants, the family to be top of their husband's priority list. Do you want to become that husband that puts his family first? Do you want to be that husband that puts his wife first? Of course, you would have left many single friends. You would have left many single activities, as it were, that you would have done on a normal day when you were single. You have to understand that, things have changed around you. You're not just the single man that you were before. You've now got some sort of responsibility by the fact that you've married someone, and so you have to understand that at this point priorities will change. Of course, if women, and if your wife sees that you're putting her first, you're putting the family first, this increases the love, and this just makes things a lot better and easier in the house. So it's important to set your priorities right once you step through that door. If you want to write them down, you can write them down. If you want to evaluate them, so often you can evaluate them. I used to tell my wife that, I made up my mind long ago whilst we were courting, to be resistant to the spirit of arguments and, and the spirit of sort of discord or disagreement. So I early enough made up my mind to forgive, made up my mind to, just make sure that the joy and the happiness of my family and my family members is priority. So I learned on time how to say I'm sorry. I learned on time how to, adjust, and make people happy. I learned on time how not to prolong, arguments or prolong quarrels. I learned on time as well how to accept responsibility, even when I'm not at fault. I think that's one quality that, husbands need to learn, because many times, in the marriage, you would be at fault, knowingly or unknowingly, and it's important to learn to accept that early on, because of course it will make peace reign. Right, I'll move to my second point, on successful tips to becoming a great husband. Learn to express appreciation and gratitude to your wife. They work really hard. They work hard to look after you. They work hard to look after the family, to love you. They work hard, to ensure that the home is running, essentially. Sometimes men can be a little bit disorganized, but women, coming into your life, they tend to put, things in perspective. They tend to organize things. My wife likes to organize things, and, she also likes to be appreciated. She likes to be, she likes to be recognized, and that's what I've learned, as a husband. Always appreciate your wife. When she's made a meal, appreciate her. You shouldn't eat the food without complimenting the food. When she looks nice, appreciate her. When she goes out of her way to clean the house or to buy stuff for the house, appreciate her, just of course as she also does the same back to you. So it's important. It's important. Show them gratitude, not just with words, but of course with gifts as well. And if you've got children, it's important to also do that. Another thing, just leading from that, I would say, is because of course you've moved from being that single person to become, a married couple. Successful husbands should learn to carry their wives along. Include them in your plans. Include them in, the future plans. Include them in everything that happens. Don't take decisions by yourself. Don't take decisions, alone like you would have done when you were single, because these are the things that can cause problems. And I'll give you a personal example. I'm a go-getter. I'm very on the go person. I like to make spot on decisions. I don't like to waste time. So, when I initially got married, at first I was just taking, very quick decisions because I wanted things to happen really quickly. And, it got me into trouble with my wife, because I would realize that I have, taken 5 steps before I realized that I haven't said a word to my wife about what I've done. But it got me into trouble with her. And, over time I had to learn, that, wives want to always be included in the decision making, and it's the right thing to do. If you're planning to buy a house, you're planning to buy a car, let her know about the budget, let her know what's in the account, let her know exactly the financial situation. They want to feel heard, they want to feel needed, and they want to feel as part of the team. And if this is done correctly, it makes the home better. It makes your marriage more successful, and essentially makes you a successful husband. Moving on from that, I would also say, just as you include them, learn to listen to them. The number one way to be a good husband is to really listen when they speak, when they give their suggestions. Listen, even if at the end of the day you think, well, it's not the best suggestion, but hear them out, listen to them, put away all the distraction and focus on what they are saying. And of course, don't try to, always be the one with the perfect solution. Sometimes sit back and, try out that solutions. I'm a very good planner. I love to plan. I love to execute stuff. But many times, I've just heard the subtle voice of my wife, telling me or advising me on what to do. And, I sit back and I'm like, you know what, that's exactly what we are going to do. And we do it and it turns out nice. And it would have been that if I had, approached it the way I wanted to approach it, it would have been a total disaster. So it's important to take on, they say 2 heads are better than 1. That's why, of course, married couple would have a more formidable force than just the one person. I can go on and on, talking about being, a successful husband, because I think I try. Maybe you need to ask my wife about that, but I think I do try. I know women will love the next thing I'm going to say is show them love openly. They want to know, they want to feel that, you love them and you're proud of them. You're proud to love them openly. Show them affection openly. Kiss your wife in public, hold hands, sit on her couch, give her hugs, when you get back, randomly. They just want to know that, you love them and you genuinely do, not just at night when nobody's watching and, the lights are off and all of that. No, when people are around, when you've got guests, when you're walking on the streets, they want to know that, they hold a special place in your heart. These things help to foster the love and, the oil of marriage. I mean, it's important, as men, because of course men they like to see themselves as, people who know it all. Sometimes you might make mistakes, and, one quality of a good husband is to be able to sort of accept, your mistakes and shortcomings, as it were, and, accept them with your chest and move on when you've done something wrong. Don't always push it. Don't always push the blame. Another way, which I think I like to do as well, people say, you're always flexing with your wife. You're always, going from one place to another, because I understand that can, improve the quality of your relationship, and that can make you a successful husband. Take your family on vacations. It doesn't have to be in a different country. It doesn't have to be in somewhere expensive, but have that time where you can sit out with your spouse, with the person you're dating or whatever, and take them out. Let it just be, time between both of you. Create lovely memories. It helps everyone to escape the stress, the everyday stress. So as you plan to get married, as you plan to get into your, that relationship that will lead to marriage, develop the culture of taking time out to relax, taking out time to go on vacations. And that's what I've done, as a husband, and I feel it's helped. And, all of the things that I have said about, being a successful husband also translates, to being a successful father, because, as you learn to treat your wife with care, with love, with respect, as you learn to listen to them, as you learn to admit faults, as you learn to treat her with care and love and take her on vacation, that's the same thing that you're going to transfer to your children. It's no surprise, when you see men who treat their wives anyhow, shout at their wives, or treat them like they're nobody, transfer the same attitude to their children, and treat their children in similar fashion, because they've not used the opportunity to develop themselves as good husbands, and so it becomes difficult to become good fathers. So it's important to understand that you need to develop these qualities as you get into relationship, or as you start the journey of marriage, essentially, because this would give you peace in your home. So to the young men, I would say, these are seasons, or, where you need to develop these, characteristics. I think most of the things that I have said, I started in some way, shape or form doing them whilst I was, courting my wife. I invested in, our relationships, listening to her, caring for her, being there for her, showing affection to her, and all of that. So these are things that, of course, you need to work on. And if there's something that I've mentioned that you're struggling with, there's always room for improvement. I was never perfect, never made a perfect person or a perfect husband or father. It's a growth process. It's a development process, and as you continue to work on your character, you get to become improved, and you get to become a better person. And better people make better husbands, and better people make better fathers. So I would say work on yourself, develop yourself, and become a better person, first of all. And then you can treat people well, you can treat your spouse well, and essentially you can become a father. Of course, finally, it's important to learn from people who have gone ahead of you. Speak to people who are already husbands and are doing well. Speak to people who are already fathers and are doing well. Read books about, being a successful husband, about being a successful father. And all of these things put together can help develop those, characteristics, can help mold those qualities that you need to become successful in your home. Thank you.
You see, I like the part where you said that you got married before 30. For me, that's a goal. And if you're listening to this episode and that's also a goal for you and you're not yet 30, I want to assure you, I want to guarantee you, if you take note and if you practicalize everything that is being shared here, you would definitely hit that goal of getting married before 30. It's actually achievable. And just in case you're above 30, okay, and you still plan on getting married soon, I'm sure of my name, you will definitely get married as soon as possible. You will. If you've not found her, trust me, you would find her soon. If you found her and you're still making plans and you're trusting God for finances and every other thing to fall in place so you can settle down, everything will definitely fall in place. And don't forget to invite me for your marriage blessing. Don't forget to invite me for your union, for your wedding. I would definitely like to attend and to share in your joy. I would do well to extend the invitation to me. And remember, a doctor also shared that you should set your priorities as a husband. Set your priorities as a father. Put your family first. Put your family first. You see, the thing you just heard is one of the secrets of building a peaceful home. Yeah, it's one of the secrets in building a peaceful home. Do this and you will not have any worry. You would not have any worry. You won't be like the men that wish to themselves, that they just want to go home late. Because you see, if you pay attention to what he said, and you look at it the other way, he is the one that is giving. Because your wife is like a receiver. Whatever you give is what she's going to give back to you. Women are like incubators. If you give them anger, they will definitely give it back to you. If you give them peace, you would enjoy peace at home. If you give them money, they will multiply. So whatever you give to them, they will multiply. So, like I said earlier on, we as men, we are leaders. We are foundation of the home. And we have a responsibility, we have a part to play in not just building the house, but in building the type of home that we want to see. So every man who goes home to a nagging wife, you're responsible for it. And you can change it. You can correct it. You can influence it. Okay, doctor, next question. So we have young men who grew up in homes where their fathers literally left the bulk of parenting to their wives, who were their mothers now, while their time was consumed by work and friends. How can we create a balance between career time, friends, and family time?
Right, so it is true that some young men today grew up in homes where parenting was left completely for the mothers to do, whilst the fathers just walked and knew little to nothing about their children. But the question is, how can we achieve that work life balance between career time, friends, and family time? I think it's essential. First of all, I don't think it's appropriate to abandon or to leave parenting to one of the parents, because of course it is a combined job, and for every child they need that influence from both parties. They need that influence from the father. They need that love, care, and influence from the mother as well. And of course, it is a tedious job to raise children. And men must realize that, they have to work, of course, and, they have to also, succumb to the responsibility of raising their children as well. And who says women can't work as well? Men are not the only one expected to work. Women go to work as well. So if they can look after children, men can also look after children. So it's important that men must understand that, the role of raising their children, the role of taking care of their children and influencing their children, is very much a big part of their responsibility, from day one, as it were. I remember when we gave birth to our first daughter, I had to learn to bat my daughter. In fact, my wife was scared of batting her. I baited my daughter for a couple of weeks. I learned to change nappies. I learned to feed her in the middle of the night. I learned to thaw the frozen breast milk and feed her. I learned to back my daughter, and I learned to do everything that would be required of a parent to do for their children who are growing. So it's not the responsibility of one party or one sex, but of course it's a combined responsibility. Men need to learn to, of course, support their wives in raising their children. And of course, talking about creating a balance, it's important, of course, to create that balance. Ensure that outside work, you've got enough time for family. You've got enough deliberate time to spend with your family. Create time if you think you're very busy. Create time. Family time must be priority. As I said in the previous question, you must put your family as a priority. Have time that is dedicated to spend with your spouse, dedicated to spend with your child or your children. There are weeks that I have sort of dedicated for my daughter to attend, to her soft play or to go out to the park, or just to stay at home and bond and play, not necessarily watching TV or anything, just bond and play with them. So it's important because, of course, your family needs that affection. They need that time together, that quality time spent together. It increases the bond in the family, and it helps the family function and grow even better. Of course, if you're finding that you're taking up too many responsibilities outside the family, that can, of course, affect your time, and that can affect how much you give to your family. And this is where, once again, priority comes into play. You should ensure that before you take up that additional responsibility, that additional hobby, that additional activity and responsibility, is it going to affect my family time? Is it going to affect the time that I have to bond with my family? Because of course you've got work which you have to do. Family should also be very important, as it were. So I would say it is about, making your priorities right. If the priorities are right, then, time would be spent appropriately. And if it's done consciously as well, to ensuring that the family time doesn't suffer, then, I think it would go well. It's important for men, to take that initiative, that lead to plan it and plan to do things together as a family. They say family that does things together sticks together. Go to church together, go for programs together, go for holidays together, go to restaurants, go to eat together. I take my daughter to almost all of our outings and all of our restaurants, because of course we are a family. So learn to do things together. Every time spent with family is invaluable. So it's important, because of course there would be times where work and career will call, and of course you have to respond to that call. So of course every other time that you have left for family, ensure that it is precious. And of course, talking about friends are also, very important, and they're an important part of your life, and, they have to come in somehow. But once again, it's important to create that balance. Your friends should not take away from family time, the same way that work should not take away from family time. There should be a balance, and, if anything needs to suffer, it should not be, family time. So I think it's making sure that you have the balance right. I know some people that would prefer to spend time out with friends, spend time out, in extracurricular activities, as opposed to spending time with family. But I don't think this is right, and I don't think this is healthy as well, for family growth. And I have learned to give my family, quality time. If you follow me on social media, you would understand, of course, that my life revolves around, my family and sometimes work, but essentially, I do pretty much everything with my family, because, they're quite an important part, especially if you've got, a young family that is growing. You want to show, your family, you want to show your kids, the true meaning, of family. You want them to feel the love. And so if you're taken away by work, taken away by friends, taken away by social clubs, then your kids don't get to enjoy you, and they don't get to enjoy that love of being in a family. So it's important as growing men to learn that, family is important, family is priority, and families should come first. Thank you.
Very, very interesting. The role of raising your child is your responsibility, Kai. Thank you very much. Thank you so much, sir. Thank you. So finally, doctor, what's your final words for young men out there to help them prepare for relationship, as well as working on themselves and building themselves?
Right. So my final words to, young men out there who are in relationships, preparing to get married. Well, I'll say to you that marriage is for men, for matured men, and not for boys. And so it's important for you to take conscious steps, conscious decision to grow out of boyhood and, grow into manhood. And that, of course, entails, moving away from childish thoughts, moving away from childish ways of doing things, and, taking responsibility, taking the challenge to start behaving like, a matured person, taking responsibility to, change your, approach to life, develop skills, develop characteristics that we have talked about today, that would, improve your relationship, that will show your spouse or the person you're dating that you're not just a boy, but that you're a matured and a responsible man, ready to become a father, ready to become, a husband. It takes more than just being a man or a male figure to be a husband. It takes much more than that. It takes love, it takes care, it takes hard work, it takes sacrifice, it takes selflessness, it takes a lot of that. It takes responsibility to become a husband. It takes just more than having sexual intercourse to becoming a father. It requires a whole lot of sacrifice. It requires a whole lot of diligence. It requires you to become a pace setter, a role model for that little one that you're bringing into the world. It requires you to become a figurehead, or a father figure, if I should use that word, to the person you're bringing in to the world. So it is a large responsibility to be a husband and as well as a father, and it's not a responsibility that you stumble into because you will fail. It is a responsibility that you prepare for, and you walk into knowing that you're fully equipped and fully prepared for it. That way you will be a successful husband, you'll be a successful father, and whoever you end up getting married to would be one of the luckiest persons, because they would have ended up marrying someone with great potentials, and marriage would be sweet and enjoyable, which is essentially what everyone wants, really. Yeah, so I believe with these few points of mine, I have been able to encourage a young person out there that it's not too early to get married. It's not too difficult to deal with difficult in-laws. It's not rocket science to love your wife, to cherish your wife, to prioritize your family, and it's not impossible to create time for family and create work-life balance. Ensure that, of course, you're preparing and you're working hard to making sure that you build yourself and you equip yourself for marriage. And I pray that God will help you, and God will prepare you to be the best spouse that your partner can ever have. Yeah, thank you so much. Thank you, Anna, and it's been wonderful speaking to you.
Yes, that's it. Wow, thank you so much, sir. Thank you so much, sir. Take conscious steps to moving out of boyhood and into manhood. Take conscious step. Like I shared with us in the last week's episode, there are 3 stages of manhood. You have boyhood or childhood, you have bachelorhood, and then you have fatherhood. So please, like I said, go back and listen to this podcast again. Listen to it again. It will do you good. It will do you good. Thank you very much for listening. Thank you so much, Dr. Esien, for being with us today. To every single man out there who has been listening to us, thank you so much. For those who have been following this podcast series when we started, thank you. Happy new month. Happy new month. Welcome to a new month. And next week's episode promises to be another amazing time. It promises to be another amazing time. Thank you very much. I send my best regards to you, and I remain my humble self, AI. Please, I just remembered, in case you have further questions, okay? In case you have further questions about relationship and personal development, okay, about anything that was shared in today's episode or in last week's episode, do have to reach out to me through email. Okay, reach out to me through email, and your questions are definitely going to be treated. I would actually send you a response. I'll reach out to any of the speakers and send you a response. Okay, send you a response via your email. And please, one of the reasons why we are doing this and we are having a collection of married men to take this session is so you can appreciate the role of learning and the role of mentorship. So just in case you need mentorship as a young man, you need mentorship for your relationship, you need mentorship, submission, and accountability for your relationship, for your future marriage. Okay, and any of the speakers strikes your heart and you would like any of them to be your mentor, do not hesitate to reach out. We need, like you heard in last week's episode, you need mentors to grow. You need mentors to strive. You need mentors to learn from their experiences. Do well to reach out to me, and I will connect you to any one of them for mentorship. My email is, let me call it out again, annaiyang01@gmail.com. I'll take that again, annaiyang01@gmail.com. Let me spell it. ANAINYANG01. The 01 is number 0 and 1 at gmail.com. Thank you so much. Thank you so much for listening. Have a lovely weekend. Best regards.